Good afternoon, and welcome to another Research in Action brought to you by the Division of Research at Florida Atlantic University. My name is Karen Scapinato. I will be today's moderator. With that, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Armiel Suriaga. Dr. Suriaga is an assistant professor in the Christine E. Lynn College of Nursing at Florida Atlantic University, and actually fairly recently received his Ph.D. in nursing from Florida Atlantic University. He received multiple awards, including Excellence in Leadership, Excellence in Service, and Excellence in Scholarship, and a Daisy Award for an extraordinary nursing student. His research interests include managing chronic pain in older adults, substance use, misuse, and abuse, particularly on opioids and cannabinoids. And that will be a part of his talk today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Suriaga, who will tell you more about it.
Good afternoon, Karen. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Armiel Suriaga, and along with Dr. Lani Changanesco and Dr. Elizabeth Aston of Brown University, we would like to share with you our research work. We titled this as SCCHRED, but for this topic, we will be dealing with the tips to nip cannabinoid-related deaths in the bud. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you, Armiel.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so let's start off. My name is Armiel, and along with Dr. Changanesco and Dr. Aston of Brown University, we would like to share with you this research. And this is about cannabis, cannabinoids, and at this first slide, we defined some terms like your cannabis, which refers to all the products from cannabis sativa plant, and marijuana, which refers to the parts or the products of the cannabis sativa plants, which contains a substantial amount of your tetrahydrocannabinol, or we call that THC. The cannabis plant contains 540 chemical compounds, and in that chemical compounds or substances, we call that cannabinoids. So cannabinoids are chemical substances which are found in the cannabis sativa plant. And we are concerned with the two main cannabinoids, which are the CBD, very popular, cannabidiol, which is the non-psychoactive, and your delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, or the THC. This one causes the high or the psychoactive substance. Oops, I got froze. Okay. So when we are talking about the prevalence or how many people in the United States are using marijuana, in the report of the National Institute on Drug Abuse last year, marijuana is very popular. It was third among the most used substances next to alcohol and tobacco. And almost 50 million Americans 12 years and above have reported use of marijuana in last year, according to the Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration. And in our state, Florida, the number of people who have active medical marijuana cards, if you examine just this year, from almost 459,171 to 612,623 users of marijuana alone for this month. So it's a big jump from early this year. And as you can see in this slide, we have the map of the United States showing the states that legalize the medical use of marijuana. We have 35 states, and Florida is one of them. And we also have states that legalize the recreation use of marijuana. And because of its popularity, the sales of marijuana, they're expected to reach $24 billion in 2025. It started off with $6.56 billion in 2016. So it's like increasing exponentially at this point in time. So what are the reasons why people use cannabis or marijuana? And majority of the reasons for the use of marijuana is for fun, and only 23% a combination of fun and medical reasons, and 30% is for medical use of marijuana. And for the medical use of marijuana, so we have different conditions or diseases. We have symptoms of pain, which top the list. We have epilepsy, we have your nausea and vomiting, multiple sclerosis, anxiety, inflammatory bowel syndrome or disease, and irritable bowel syndrome, as well as PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, along with your sleep problem. So when you ask how people use marijuana or cannabis, you may see that vaping is more popular among adolescents. As you can see here in the screen, people also use vaporizers where they use liquid extracts from marijuana, or they use this as edibles like candies, as you can see, brownies, or any other edibles, gummies. You can see them in the mall. We have like CBD stores in there that sells these products. And also, most of the people use smoking. They roll it and or fill it in the cigar or empty cigar and put marijuana products in there. Some people use a topical ointment or application on the skin, and other mode of uses of cannabis. So you can see here the effects of marijuana based upon the National Institute on Drug Abuse. We have the physical effects of marijuana that includes your breathing problem. Especially when they smoke marijuana, it affects the lungs. It increases the heart rate or tachycardia. In children, it has problem with child development during and after pregnancy, and intense nausea and vomiting as the physical effects. And for the mental effects of cannabis, we have temporary hallucinations, temporary paranoia or suspiciousness, worsening symptoms of schizophrenia, and disorganized thinking. And then we have your short and long-term effects of cannabis, like your altered sense of time, altered senses, seeing bright colors, impaired body movement, difficulty thinking, problem solving, memory, hallucinations, delusions, and all these short-term effects in the mental or in the brain. For the long-term effects, some people report that they have lower life satisfaction or poor mental health, physical health problems, more relationship problems, and also they impair their memory, thinking, and learning. In this study, a systematic review conducted by Leung and colleagues in 2020, they say that the risk of cannabis use disorder among people who use the substance, marijuana, 22% have cannabis use disorder. They included 21 studies in this systematic review out of 1383 articles or manuscripts that they reviewed. 21 they included in the study and found that 22% have cannabis use disorder, and 13% of those who use cannabis resulted in cannabis abuse, and also 13% have cannabis dependence based upon the review of the manuscript or the studies involved. And those young people who engage in the daily use of cannabis on a weekly or on a weekly basis, there is an increased risk of 30% that develop cannabis dependence on that age group. So what are the other effects of cannabis or marijuana? In a study by NIDA this year, they released that almost 500,000 cases that went to the emergency room from 2019 to 2011, they found that there was a 21% increase of the cases where marijuana was mentioned in the diagnosis when they visited the emergency room in the United States. And also, out of the cases, Bolko and colleagues also, 2014, revealed that addiction was very high, 9% of cases. If one starts in adolescence, it increases to 17% risk for addiction. And 25 to 50% increase for daily users in terms of addiction when they do it, when they started early. So here that even days after you use marijuana is still in the system while driving. So as you can see in our study, next slide here, let me do a full screen for you. 1 second. Okay. So our project now is about we call it the SCCHRED Project, which stands for Synthetic Cannabinoid and Cannabinoid-Related Deaths for Harm Reduction, Education, Dissemination. Although we don't talk about synthetic cannabinoids for this presentation, we focus on the cannabinoids. But synthetic cannabinoids, if you talk about it, is that they spray onto plants the chemicals that could be risky, unpredictable, and can cause many deaths. In our study, 221 people out of 275 died from synthetic cannabinoids as a cause of death. So our purpose of our study is to increase nursing students' awareness as well as the public awareness about the risk of these substances. And we created the harm reduction dissemination initiative. As I said, we call it SCCHRED, and it has two phases. The first phase, we did the secondary data analysis of the de-identified data, and we used the data from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement from 2014 and 2019. Our preliminary analysis of the current data that was shared to us in 2019 showed a big increase in cannabinoid deaths from 1 in 2014 to 49 in 2019. So it sounds like it is like 4,900% increase from 2014. And the second phase of this study involves the dissemination of results from our secondary analysis, as well as the other NIDA evidence-based studies we included in our dissemination efforts. So the methods used for the study, we did secondary analysis, and we also synthesized the articles or the manuscripts, especially from NIDA, since this study was funded by NIDA. And we used the SPSS 28 to examine the characteristics of dissidents or those who died from cannabinoids and from synthetic cannabinoids. And we use some statistical tools to see if there's some association among age, gender, manner of death of people who use the substance. And then we created educational tools like trifold, pamphlet, and innovative Canvas course to educate our nursing students and also the public about the risk of these substances. So as the result we have here, we focus on 2014 and 2018. For cannabinoids, we don't include 2019, as I said, mostly male. 70% for cannabinoids, synthetic is 92%, female 29% here for cannabinoids, and almost 8% in synthetic cannabinoids. And in terms of ethnicity, non-Hispanic whites, majority were affected, 72% for cannabinoids, and almost 56% in synthetic cannabinoids. And this happened 100% in cannabinoids among urban counties in Florida, and only 72% for synthetic cannabinoids. And mind you, this one has 100% cause of death. They were attributed to accidents for cannabinoids, and for synthetic cannabinoids, majority died from accidents using the substance synthetic cannabinoid. So as we have here, we have the age group that are mostly affected. For synthetic cannabinoids, we have 35 to 44 years old. And then we have 25 to 34 years old for the cannabinoids. This is our statistical analysis. If you see if there's an association between age, gender, or sex, and then the manner of death of people using chi-square test of association, there were significant association or relationship when we examine the socio-demographic variables in this study. So to disseminate our results, we use the model of dissemination research where we have the sources, our secondary analysis, and then we have the NIDA evidence-based studies. And then we send the message to the target audience. We have the nursing students, we have the public, we have professional organizations when we present our research, our work in conferences, in webinars, and podcasts. Okay, so that's our channel of communications. So far, we have the strategies that we use. We have the trifold pamphlet that we will be distributing. We will also be distributing this to the doctoral conference in AACN, the American Association of Colleges of Nursing in Naples for next year, January 2022. And then we have created the Canvas course for nursing students, and also the public awareness. And I would like to thank the Division of Research here at FAU that they give us the opportunity to share these results with you. So far, our efforts continued. We represented this research to the National Institute on Drug Abuse last April during the Clinical Trials Network, attended nationwide by scientists and researchers. And we have our synopsis of our projects here published. And also we have shared this with our nursing students, I said, in psych clinical, as well as in the Canvas course. And today we're sharing with you also the tips how to nip cannabinoid through education, public awareness about these substances. And for November, we will be sharing this again for the AMERSA conference, which is the Association of Multidisciplinary Education Research and Substance Abuse. Will be attended by different disciplines, psychologists, psychiatrists, neuroscientists, research, and other researchers in the field. So we're continuing our efforts to share the informations about the risk and also the dangers of cannabinoids and synthetic cannabinoids. And for the references, we have it here. If you have questions, please let me know. It is a quick presentation, but we are entertaining your questions. And also we acknowledge the FDLE, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, for providing the data to us, and also the National Institute on Drug Abuse and the American Association of Colleges of Nursing for the funding for this study. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Armiel. Just as a reminder, if you have any questions for today's speaker, please post them in the Q&A button. You can find it at the bottom of your screen. If you click on the Q&A there, a little pop-up comes up and you can type your question there. So, Armiel, you talked a lot about the effects of cannabinoids on the ability to drive and potential accidents that can happen. So the first question here, is there a threshold beyond which an individual should not be allowed to drive, or is it any use of cannabinoids?
Yeah, when we had a review of literature about the amount of THC, for example, that can impair the driving ability of the users, and they found that the more THC contained that in the body, the more they are at risk for developing problems in terms of decision making when driving, and also when they're changing lanes or increasing their speed of driving. So one collaborators we have, Dr. Aston, published a manuscript about the driving ability of cannabis users, that the substance stayed in the system for days and weeks. And when after using cannabis or marijuana, and when they drive while using, also they made a study that those people who have less perception of the risk involved with cannabis because of peer pressures, like peers said, oh, it's safe to drive while under the influence of cannabis, it increases the risk of a driving impairment, which results to injury and death. We don't have that study in this particular research work about the amount of cannabinoids found in the system of the person, how much THC can impair the driving ability. So it's an ongoing study, but we searched the literature and we found that some literature said that THC mostly cause the accidents while driving. But it's interesting to see also that 98% of our dissidents in Florida, their death were attributed to accidents, and 30% of that was caused by cannabinoids alone, even without THC, which is very interesting for our data analysis. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. And another question is, I think in one of the slides or in the video that you showed, it was mentioned that, for example, alcohol is often associated also with alcohol use is often associated with marijuana smoking. Are there other risk factors that make a person more susceptible to the effects of cannabinoids?
Yes, in our analysis of 86 dissidents in Florida, we have found that 10% of them have alcohol involvement, ethanol in their system when they died, when the medical examiners examined them through urine and toxicology results. And also there's some opioids involved, 26% opioids like your fentanyl, morphine, hydrocodone involved in their system upon at the time of death. And when they examined cannabinoids as a cause of death, they also found out that they have some other substances like methamphetamine or stimulants that is very high now. I know NIH published last week, I think days ago, about the increased amount of methamphetamine usage in the United States. And most of this these cannabis users in our study, they have some degree of methamphetamine in the system as reported by the medical examiners in the report.
Aside from other substance use, are there other medical conditions that would aggravate the consequences of cannabinoid use?
Yes, we have cases that are cardiovascular, people with cardiovascular disorders, atherosclerosis, ischemia, that are attributed to this. One mentioned about diabetes, and one mentioned about the sickle cell disease when they had high in THC. So, and also we have the pulmonary cardiorespiratory disorders that are mentioned in the report. And when we did the manuscript that we will be submitting, we have that attributed the percentage of people who had cardiovascular involvement while they have a cannabis in their system, how many percent, and of those also with respiratory involvement, along with other substances or polydrug use while under the influence of cannabis.
Thank you. Okay, going back to the slide that you showed about the number of people for cannabis-related death. Do you have a total number of people who died from cannabis-related death? And are there any statistics for Florida specific, or even for one of our counties here, like Palm Beach County or Broward? Are there county and state-specific numbers?
We have a specific because what we did is that we do it by county. We count the deaths by county, and we have 67 counties in Florida, and it's showing Broward County, Palm Beach County, and we counted that the same thing that we did in opioids. So we have the specific amount of deaths per county and per year. I don't have it with me right now, but yes, we do. We calculated by year 2014 how many deaths in Broward and Palm Beach County or Orange County or those kind of stuff. Most of them, 100% are in urban counties like your Miami-Dade County, Broward County, Hillsborough. Those are the counties in Palm Beach County.
Okay.
In the Val, yeah.
Great. Just as a reminder, if you do have a question for Dr. Suriaga, please post it and write it in the Q&A little pop-up. And if you would like to see those numbers that Dr. Suriaga was just mentioning, the county-specific statistics, feel free to contact him directly. So you mentioned the synthetic versus natural cannabinoids. One question here is, how are synthetic cannabinoids made?
The synthetic cannabinoids, it's not actually the marijuana per se, or it could be the marijuana, but it's like a plants that they spray the chemicals onto it, but they mimic the actions or the appearance with the appearance of marijuana or cannabinoids. So they're called fake weed because they're not really marijuana, but they sprayed chemicals on it. And then some research showed that they sprayed like insecticides or pesticides that can be risky for the users. And then the dosage is not fixed, or it varies from one makers and the others producers. So it's difficult to track the exact amount of synthetic cannabinoids that they contain in the product, like K2, spices, those kind of stuff. So, and then they keep on changing their names for them to be tracked by the law enforcers. So that's make it challenging, but there's an increased a number of people who went to the emergency room because of synthetic cannabinoid intoxication that resulted to death.
Mhm. Thank you. Now, most of us probably have heard about the medicinal use of marijuana, right? And especially like for epilepsy, and there was a big movement at some point when first legalization was being discussed. I have a question here with related to schizophrenia. And if you have found any research if cannabinoids cause, exacerbate, or contribute to symptoms of schizophrenia, and whether THC or CBD can be used for that population.
We found a study by Bolko, which is the director of the, I think, NIDA. She wrote an article about the amount of THC that exacerbate the symptoms of psychosis for mental illness, and they found that it aggravates by, I think, 32% in that study for people that use synthetic cannabinoids and also the cannabis, which is mainly the THC in that study. So they found that even NIDA in their website, you see that it aggravates the disorganized thinking, which is associated with schizophrenia, and also those paranoia that is characteristic of schizophrenia, or the negative and the positive symptoms of schizophrenia that can be triggered or aggravated by the use of cannabis in the system. And although they don't have that exact amount of the dosage that can trigger the symptoms, but continued use, like daily or weekly use of cannabis, can exacerbate the symptoms of schizophrenia. So they don't advise people who have existing mental disorders the use of cannabis, and also those people who are pregnant and teens and older adults. They have high risk for accidents and adverse effects from cannabis. So in terms of schizophrenia and other disorders, yes, although they are used for anxiety, depression for cannabis, but it can also affect some psychotic episodes in people with impaired mental or unstable mental health.
Okay, thank you. One of our attendees noted that in one of your graphs, you showed that that it started at age 12. And the question here is whether there was significant information for children using marijuana.
In our, as you can see here, we divided even zero because we one incidence is from maternal to child syndrome. It's only one out of the 86 deaths that is attributed to maternal use of marijuana during pregnancy. And the rest, like only a minimal in the age 12 age groups, which is congruent with other studies that 10th graders, 8th graders, they use marijuana already in the United States. And however, our studies show that those college age group between 18 to 24, they also have a considerable number there that they died from the use of cannabis, of cannabinoids. But in our study, we have 35 to 44 for the cannabinoids. Most deaths happen in there, in that group. But we cannot deny that, yes, it affects also those age group, like the 12th grader, 8th grader. And we want to extend the study to do more disseminations on that high school, or that's what we discussed with other researchers for the study, that it's a good way to disseminate because it's also affect that age group.
Mm-hmm. With the children that you looked at, especially the middle school and high schoolers, is there any evidence that they come primarily from households where the parents are smoking marijuana or the mother smoked marijuana during pregnancy?
In our studies, only one that I found. That's one incidence of maternal to child, and then the child died, less than 1 year old, died from marijuana, from attributable to marijuana. But in the study by NIDA, they say that increase in that age group, 10th graders, 12th graders, it was just the highest. I think that was that manuscript or the articles from NIDA was released recently, and the highest among college age students now, the use of cannabinoids, the vaping. But in our study, as I said, we don't see that much increase from that age group from 2014. The one that we see from the 18, 35 years old, and 44.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, we only have one. Now we have two questions left. So the next one is, since the legalization, excuse me, of medical marijuana in Florida, have you seen an increase in either, cannabinoid-related deaths, I should say?
That's a good question because the legalizations in marijuana happened 2000, I think 18 or 16, something like that. And then the death from 2014 was very minimal. One death in 2014 when we started the study. And then 2016 went up 9, 10. And then 2019, we have 49 deaths in cannabinoids, related deaths alone as a cause of death. So it's a big jump, almost 5,000% increase after the legalizations here in Florida.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I assume that's been seen across the country. In other states where the medical marijuana has become illegal?
There's one state that the Washington state didn't report an increase after legalization of marijuana. There's some states that they don't report a significant increase in the number of deaths in marijuana. But in our study in Florida, when we see the after the legalizations or before legalization, there is a substantial increase in the death.
Okay. How do you know how other countries deal with this problem?
I'm sorry.
Do you know how other countries deal with this problem?
Yes, we have different. We reviewed some articles like from Iceland or Europe about in Canada as well about the increase a number of people who have the disorder, cannabis use disorder. There's increase in the demand for treatment increases from them, and the usage increases, especially in Canada, where marijuana is legal, and also in other European countries. We don't have much studies from Asia in terms of the usage, but overall worldwide, it's a big increase in the use of marijuana. So we have to differentiate between which one is synthetic cannabinoid deaths or the one that are from legal use of marijuana, like the medical use of marijuana. So yes, we see an increase, and that study that one of our citations and there is from Canada that has a big increase as well in the use of cannabis.
Great. Okay, that's all the questions that we had, Armiel. So if you have any more questions afterwards, feel free to contact Dr. Suriaga. You can either contact me or him directly. I'll be happy to facilitate the interactions. Next week, we have a Halloween-specific talk, on creepy crawlers. So come on and join us then. Thank you very much for calling in. Thank you, Armiel, for speaking today to us. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the day.
So thank you so much.